Hi guys, it's Joanne here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to cut and sew this princess style bustier with a built-up neckline. Trust me, this tutorial is going to be very detailed. If this is what you're interested in, kindly stick around and watch this video to the end. Also, don't forget to click on the subscribe button if you haven't done so. Now guys, without wasting much of your time, let's get right into the tutorial. So guys, I'm going to start with the drafting of this pattern. First, from the top of this pattern paper, I'm going to be coming down by 2.5 inches. I'm going to explain that later in this video, why I came down by 2.5 inches. So I'm just going ahead to mark on different points of this pattern paper to enable me get a straight line. Once I was done with that, I proceeded to take my straight rule to connect this point into a straight line. Now this line will serve as a shoulder line. I'm going to just go ahead and label this as the shoulder. Notice that I'm going to be taking the vertical measurement from this shoulder line which I just drew here. So placing my tape here on this line, I am going to be marking the chest line measurements. To get your chest line, you're going to have to divide your busts by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Once you're through with that, just get a straight through and connect into a straight line. So I'm going to label this as the chest line, which is CL. From this shoulder line here as well, I'm going to also mark the under bust line. I'll do the same thing on this other part and this side as well, just so I can get a straight line. I'll go ahead to label this as the bust point line. Sorry guys, did I say on the bust? It's actually bust point line. Now next measurement I'm going to be taking will be the on the bust line. Back to the shoulder line, you're going to place your tape there and mark your under bust measurements. Now connect that point into a straight line as well. Having done this, I'm going to just label that as the under bust line. Then the next measurement will be the waistline measurement, that is the half length. Okay, so get the measurement of your half length. Once you've gotten that measurement, place your tape on the shoulder line and determine that measurement. Now connect into a straight line. As you guys can see, I have taken the necessary vertical measurements, which is the shoulder, the chest line, the bust point line, the under bust and the waistline. So these are the measurements I'm going to be needing for this tutorial. Okay, you need the shoulder measurement, the bust measurements, under bust circumference, you need your waist circumference, your bust points, your nipple to nipple, you need your front half length and your back half length. Now I am going to go ahead to determine the bust dart which I'm going to be using for this front part. So the difference between your half length and your front half length and your back half length is what you're going to be using as your bust dart. The difference I have for this particular measurement is 1.5. So I'm going to be using 1.5 for the front bust dart. Hope you're clear. Now, having gotten the vertical measurement, I'm going to proceed to taking the horizontal measurements. First, you're going to divide your shoulder by 2 and impute on the shoulder line. Do the same thing on the chest line. Once you've gotten that measurement, on the shoulder line where you have your shoulder measurement, come down by 1 inch and connect this into a straight line to the chest line. Now on the center front pattern, you're going to go in by 3 inches for your neck width. Now connect from your neck width to the 1 inch you came down with for your shoulder slope. Okay, now from this line here, I am going to get the midpoint to enable me make the armhole curve. So get the midpoint of that line. Once you've done that, impute and come in by ½ inch or 0.75. Then on the chest line, you're going to get your bust measurement divided by 4, and you're going to be imputing on this chest line. Once you've done that, you're going to connect these 3 points. First, use a straight rule and connect to meet to the midpoint. Then use your cuff rule and connect from the midpoint all the way to the chest line. Once I was done with that, I'm going to go ahead to start taking the nipple to nipple measurement, that is the bust pant measurement. So measure your nipple to nipple and divide that measurement by 2. What you have, you're going to be imputing on each of these lines here. From the bust point line, you're going to impute on the bust and waistline as well. Alright, so on the bust point line, you're going to mark the actual nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. Then on the under bust line, you're going to subtract ½ inch from that measurement. Okay, so what I marked on the bust point line was 4.5, which is the actual nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. And on the under bust line, I subtracted ½ inch from that measurement, which I had 4 inches. I did the same thing on the waistline. That is why you're seeing that line I just drew is not straight. Now I'm going to go ahead to cut out this excess pattern paper, which I won't be needing for this measurement. Now on this line here, I'm going to go ahead to connect from the armhole to meet to this bust line. Now having done this, I'm going to also take the armhole dart. Okay, from here, come down by 1.5 inches. From the midpoint, come down by 1.5 inches. Once you've gotten that measurement, go ahead to connect to meet to the bust point line. Next, I am going to come to the underbusts and also contour the underbusts. To contour the underbust, I'm going to be coming in from this straight line here by 2 inches. I'll do the same thing on the waistline, and I'll take my straight rule and connect these 2 points into a straight line. Once I was done with that, I'm going to go ahead to use my cuff rule to connect the bustier. Okay, so from the underbust, you're going to connect with your cuff rule. Make sure that while connecting, you don't connect to exactly to the bust point line. You're going to come down by like say ½ inch to 0.75. That's because you don't want your bust point to be pointy. Okay, then once you're done with that, go ahead and blend into the line you drew from your armhole to your bust point line to eliminate any sharp points around the bust point line. So guys, just shading this part to let you know that I'm going to be cutting that part out. Now next, I'm going to start taking the body measurements. Take your bust, divide by 4 and impute, then replace your dart you have around your chest line. Okay, then on your underbust, take your underbust measurement, divide by 4. Once you've done that, make sure to replace your dart intake. Then on your waistline, do the same thing. Take your waist measurement, divide by 4 and also replace your dart intake. Then go ahead to connect each of those points to shape your bustier. So guys, having done with this, I'm going to go ahead to also replace this dart around the armhole. If not, you'll be running short of your measurements, running short of fabric around that area. So go ahead to extend with a straight line, then replace 1.5 inches which you added for your dart intake. And once you're done with that, connect it back to the chest line, like so. Now next, I'm going to come here to this bust point line, and I'm going to be taking in the bust darts. Like I said, the difference from the back half length and the front half length is 1.5 inches, meaning the front half length is longer than that of the back. So I'm going to shorten it by 1.5 inches. Okay, so that's what I am doing here. Once you've done that, connect it from the side to meet to the bust points, like so. Okay, and go ahead to shade that part. I'm going to be closing that bust dart anyways. Now, having done with this, I am going to start, working on the neckline. To extend the neckline, I am going to come here to the shoulder line, and I'm going to be going up by 2 inches. Okay, I'm going to be going up by 1.5 inches, but you can do 2 inches anyways. If you do 2 inches, you're not wrong. So from that shoulder line, go up by 1.5 inches or 2 inches. Do the same thing on this part here where you have your neck width, and go ahead to connect with a straight line. Had to use a red biro so that you guys can see, so we don't have so many, so you guys don't get confused. I hope you can see the red biro anyway. So go ahead. So I just connected that into a straight line all the way, and from that point I'm going to also repeat the same, mark 3 inches for the neck width on this other line here, on this top part line, then connect it just so you have a straight line. Okay, you don't want to guess anything, just do the right thing. So you've seen that straight line which I got on that part. Now next thing I'm going to do, from this part here, coming by half inch. Okay, from this line you just drew, coming by half inch. Once you've done that, on this part here, go inwards by 0.25. Then go ahead to take your curve rule and connect. Okay, you want to have a slight curve around that area. Connect from this point to the actual neck width. Okay, so guys, have you seen what I have? Now, having done this, I am going to go ahead to blend this part. You don't want to have any sharp points around the neckline. Once you're done with that, on this line here, this actual shoulder line, go in by either 1.5 inches or 1.025. Okay, go in by either 1.5 inches or 1.025, then mark. Once you've marked that, you're going to take your slight curve and connect all the way to meet to the chest line. Okay, I like to use the chest line because I want the head to pass through the neckline, so I don't find it difficult to, or my client don't find it difficult to wear this. Okay, once you're done with that, go ahead to connect with your slight curve, a very slight curve from that point where you marked 1.5 or 1.025. Connect it all the way to meet to this top neckline. Then guys, that's basically it for this front part. Go ahead to measure up what you have from this neckline all the way to your shoulder slope. Whatever you have, you're going to take note of that. So what I had was 6.075. I went ahead to just write that down because when I'm drafting the back, I'm going to also compare with what I have here. So this is the pattern for the back. I did the same thing. I've drawn out the vertical lines, have the shoulder line, the chest line, and the waistline. You don't need your bust point line and the under bust line for the back part. So just going to go ahead to cut out this excess pattern paper, and on the zipper part I came in by 0.75 for the zipper bulge. Okay, so you can also do 0.75. totally depends on what you want. You can also do 0.75, 0.5 inches. So from there, I'm going to be marking the zipper allowance. The zipper allowance I used for this tutorial was 1.5 inches. Okay, I went ahead to connect that into a straight line. As you guys can see, labeling this as the zipper allowance. Now from the zipper allowance here, this zipper line is where I'm going to be taking the horizontal measurements. Please take note of that. Now on the chest line, I'm going to mark the shoulder measurement divided by 2. I'll do the same thing. On the shoulder line, mark the shoulder measurement divided by 2 and repeat the same thing on the chest line. Once you've done that, on this one here, come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope and connect from that 1 inch to meet to the chest line into a straight line. Then on your shoulder line, you're going to mark the neck depth width of 3 inches, just like the front. Now connect your shoulder slope to meet to the neck width. Now guys, just take the midpoint of this line here now, and on the chest line, you're going to divide your bust by 4 and impute on the chest line. Once you've done that, you're going to connect this to meet to the shoulder, the midpoint around the armhole, and to the tip of your shoulder. Hope you understand. So that's basically it for the armhole. Now on the waistline, sorry about that. On this part here, I am going to be taking the nipple to nipple measurements. Okay, now to enable me get a straight line, I had to add the 0.5 inch I came in for the zipper bulge. Had to add it up just to enable me get a straight line. So I did the same thing on the chest line. Divide your nipple to nipple measurement by 2 and impute. Just to get a straight line, you need to not subtract anything from the zipper bulge, just to get a straight line. Hope you understand what I'm explaining. Then for the waistline, go in by 1/2 inch and go out by 1/2 inch. Now connect to me to your chest line. So once you've done this, you've taken in your dart for the bag. So guys, if you want to have a princess dart around this bag, then this is the time to connect from the midpoint on your armhole to this dart intake on the chest line. If you want to have it like this normal dart here, then you don't need to do what I'm doing here. Okay, so I went ahead to connect to the midpoints of around the armhole, and I'm just blending this part here on the chest line because I don't want to have any sharp points. Okay, then to get the waist measurement, you're going to divide your waist by 4. Then from this zipper line, please take note of that. From the zipper line, you're going to take your measurements. Okay, earlier we had already taken the bust measurement divided by 4. That's what I just confirmed. And on your waist, you're going to divide your waist by 4 and replace your dart intake of 1 inch. Then go ahead to connect from your chest line to your waistline to shape your pattern. Once I was done with this, I went ahead to just alter the work on the neckline. So just like the front part, I'm going to as well come up here by 1.5 inches. Please note that the measurement you use for the front is what you use for the back. That's for the neckline extension. So connect on this other part, mark on this other part and connect into a straight line just the way I've done. And go ahead to confirm the neck width measurement on this top part as well and mark. Then connect into a straight line from this extended neckline to the actual neck width. Hope you understand. Now, having gotten these measurements, I am going to come in here from this top part by 1/2 inch, and on this line here I'm going to go inward by 0.25. I'm going to get my slight curve and connect these 2 points. After connecting, I'm going to go ahead to just blend this a little to avoid any sharp points. Now on this center line here, I am going to also go down by 1/2 inch. Okay, from this top part, go down by 1/2 inch and connect to me to this extended neck width. Once you've done that, go ahead and extend to your zipper line. And guys, that's basically it for the back neckline. The back is not that complicated. Now I'm going to go ahead to measure up what I have from on the shoulder line. Okay, just like the front parts. Like I said, you have to measure to compare if there's any difference. If there's any shortage, you have to replace. So what I have is actually 6.075. So I do not have any shortage. If you draft this very well, you will not have any shortage. Now go ahead to cut out the excess patterns. Oh guys, I forgot to cut out the zipper bulge. Please make sure you cut out your zipper bulge. But I did that later in this video anyways. Now for the front part, going to go ahead to close the bustier. To close that, you need to cut through the center line. That's the center nipple to nipple line. So guys, once you've done that, just close your bustier and replace any shortage you have around your bust's measurements on your busts. Okay, so guys, after closing the bustier, there's every possibility that you may have shortage around the bust parts. Okay, then just replace it. Now I had to use a masking tape to close this permanently. Go ahead to cut out any excess pattern paper which you will not need. Now guys, I had to cut this on my fabric off camera just to save us time. For this front part, I cut the main fabric. So for the center front, I cut the main fabric, 2 of it. That's I'm going to be using 1 for the lining piece. And note the neckline and the shoulder line, I added 0.25. On this part here, I added 1/2 inch, and on the down part 1/2 inch. Then for the center back, don't add any zipper allowance. That's if you added on your pattern paper. Then on this neckline and the shoulder, added 0.25, side 1/2 inch, down part 1/2 inch, and this one 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch on the down part, and on the side I added 2 inches. Okay, then for the side front I added 1/2 inch around here and the down part, and on the side I added 2 inches. Note that I added a stay to the main fabric. Okay, if you have enough to go around, you can add on your lining piece as well, or you add a paper stay on the lining piece. Okay, so guys, I cut the lining piece and I cut the lining piece for all other patterns apart from the main fabric I cut on the center front. Hope you understand what I mean. That's because of the neckline. That's why I cut the main fabric for the center front. Hope you understand what I mean. So now I'm going to start by joining each of these pieces together. Now for the center front, you're going to spread it like this. Let the right side face you, and now you're going to place the side front to the center front, making sure that they align, and you're going to go ahead to pin around this pin around the center front and the side front. Just pin them together if you have enough pins. Pin them, secure them with your pin, and stitch by 0.5 inch. So guys, when you after joining, this is what it will look like. If you have any excess around the armhole, you're going to cut it out later, but make sure you stitch the side front to the center front first. Okay, now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and do this on both the main fabric and the lining piece. Now for the back, it's basically the same thing. I'm going to also take away these patterns, okay, the pattern paper, and I'm going to put away the lining piece and concentrate on the main fabric first. Okay, now for the center front, I'm going to center back rather, I am going to open this up. Note that because of your zipper allowance, you're going to be having 2 pieces for the center back. Okay, just join the side to the center back and do the same thing for this other part here, the second part, and do the same thing for the lining piece. Once I was done with that, I'm going to just go ahead and give this a good press, iron it, and this is what the result after ironing this. I notch the seams on the inside and I open press the seams as well. So this is what you should have once you've stitched that. I'm going to go ahead to cut out this excess I have around the armhole. I'll do the same thing for this part. Now this is what we have here, as you can see. Then for the lining piece, this is exactly what we have for the lining piece. As you can see, you have the lining on the side and the main fabric, which is serving as the lining on the center, just the way I wanted it. So I'm going to go ahead to stitch the neckline. Please don't forget that you're going to stick to the allowance you have for your neckline. Please guys, go ahead and secure with your pin, and once you're done with that, please stitch the neckline by the allowance. So for me, I'm going to stitch the neckline by 0.25. For this back here, I am going to go ahead to place the lining piece and stitch the neckline. So now you're going to place the lining piece right side facing the right side of the main fabric. You're going to stitch the neckline by the allowance you have. For me, I'm going to stitch by 0.25. I'll do the same thing for this second part. So after stitching the neckline, this is exactly what I have. What I did was that I notched around the neckline and I gave this a very good press. At this point, you really need to iron. Okay, so you need to iron what you're sewing, just so you have a neat finish at the end of the day. So after giving this a good press, you can see what I have here. The neckline is sitting beautifully well. Now I am going to be also doing the same thing for the back parts. For the back parts, I have already stitched this, and this is what I have. Guys, note that I did not top stitch on the neckline. For both the front and the back, I didn't necessarily top stitch. That's because I use tiny allowance for it. So if you use tiny allowance for it, you will not need to top stitch. Just notch very well and iron. So for the back parts, I had to align the seam on the neckline. That's going to be separating it, like I'm going to stitch lining to lining and main fabric to main fabric at this point. So measure up what you have for your zipper allowance. What I had was 1.5 inches. Just had to confirm that. Just mark from the top part, from the neckline here, you're going to come down by either 2.5 inches or 3 inches. Okay, come down by either 2.5 inches or 3 inches. Once you've done that, because you're going to be stitching the neckline, this part of the zipper. We are going to be closing that up, okay? We're not going to be fixing the zipper to that point. Do the same thing on this part, okay? Measure up what you mark on the main fabric, do exactly the same thing on the lining piece. Once you've done that, take to your sewing machine and stitch very well. After stitching, you're going to open the seam and iron properly, okay? Now for this front here, back to the front, you're going to be closing the sides. To close the side, you're going to have to turn this over, right sides facing each other. So at this point the wrong side is going to be facing you. Now stitch by 0.25 and turn it over, give it a good press. Now after stitching this is exactly what I have here. I have stitched on the neckline. As you can see, I had to like slow this part of the video a bit so you guys can, you know, understand what I'm doing here. Now I had to trim that part to like half inch. You don't want to work with any bulky seam around the neckline, it will look awful. So after doing that, this is what I have on the right side. As you guys can see, once you've done that, it's going to be sitting very well. And as you can see, I've not closed the zipper parts, okay? Now this is the time I'm going to be closing the zipper parts. After stitching the neckline, this is now the time we are going to be closing. Now take one part like this and you're going to be stitching from this top part, okay, by like 0.25 guys, then stitch all the way down, okay? Do the same thing. First turn one side. Once you've done that, you're going to turn it over, stitch the side and turn it over before you do on the second part. So I'm going to show you guys what I mean. This is what I mean when I said you should turn one side first. So I had to like sew one side. This is what it looks like. I didn't stitch this other part, as you guys can see. Have you seen? I did not stitch on this part. Now I'm going to stitch on this part. Now you're going to flip it, okay, making sure that, see the way I have flipped this, okay, making sure the right side of the lining piece faces the right side of the main fabric, and you're going to be stitching exactly the same way you stitch the first part. Once you've done that, you're going to turn it over and give it a beautiful press. Now guys, back to this front part. I have sewn the side and I have ironed this very well. As you can see, this is sitting beautifully well. Now for the zipper line, have you guys seen? I have done the same thing. I have sewn this and I went ahead to use a loose stitch just to secure the zipper line, the zipper area, so that I can stitch the front to the back, okay? Now go ahead to place the front right side facing the back. We are going to be stitching the shoulder now, okay? Now open up the shoulder like this. You're going to be stitching it main fabric to main fabric and lining piece to lining piece. What you do is that at this point you need to be very careful. Now align the seam around the neckline and the shoulder. Once you've done that, you're going to secure with your pin. Now secure other parts of the shoulder with your pin. After securing with your pin, you're going to take to your sewing machine and sew by just half inch, by just 0.25. Sorry guys, you're going to sew by just 0.25. Now I'm going to sew by 0.25, okay? Follow the shape of the shoulder and sew exactly like that. Now after stitching, this is what it looks like. Have you seen how I follow the shape of the shoulder and the neckline? You should do the same thing, okay? Make sure that you're sewing when you've started with 0.25. Please sew 0.25 all the way to the end part. Then when you turn it over to the right side, this is exactly what you should have. Have you seen the neckline is looking very beautiful already? Now we are going to be stitching the side. Guys, please note that after stitching the shoulder, you should iron it properly so it sits before you stitch the side. Okay, now to stitch the side, just make sure that the front and the back is in place, like they are aligning. Make sure that the shoulder, the neckline is aligning. As you can see me how I am just arranging the bustier, the neckline, to make sure that everything sits very well before I go ahead to stitch. Now once you've done that, go ahead to measure up, take your measurements and stitch by whatever measurement you have left, the allowance you have left. So guys, this is what I have after stitching this. As you guys seen, the neckline is sitting beautifully well, the bustier is beautiful, everything is sitting pretty well. I'm going to go ahead now to fix the sleeve. I'm going to do that off camera, and also fix the down parts. Now guys, after fixing the sleeve and joining the skirt parts to the upper bodice, this is exactly what I have, and if you follow all the steps, this is what you should have as well. I honestly hope you find this video helpful, and if you have any comments, if you have any question for me, please kindly drop in the comment section. I'll attend to all your questions. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys in my next one.